So welcome everybody. This is the forum hosted by SEIU and Prairielands Freedom Fund for Johnson County candidates, Johnson County Supervisor candidates. I'm gonna break down the rules a little bit and then ask the first initial question, and then we'll get right into it. So, defining structure, each candidate will have 90 seconds to answer. We're going left to right with a order, kind of revolving order. You'll see what that looks like in a little bit. Moderators will signal when you have 30 seconds left, and this is being recorded. And thank you to the folks of City Channel 4 for recording this for us. Alrighty. So starting off with introductions, we'll go left to right with Rod starting. Please give us a brief introduction about yourself and your priorities for your possible upcoming term, and you have 45 seconds.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks to SEIU and Prairielands Freedom Fund for putting this on. I think it's really important that the public has some opportunity to hear from candidates, so we appreciate this opportunity. I grew up on a heritage farm, which is 150 years in the same family near Sutliff. I'm an alumnus of the University of Iowa. I worked in human services for almost 20 years before joining the Board of Supervisors, where I'm an incumbent. I'm married to Dr. Melissa Fath, who's a cancer researcher at the UI. She and I have 3 adult children, a grandchild, and we've been foster parents to 50-plus children, and we have 3 foster grandbabies right now. I'm a 30-plus year dues-paying member of my union, and I've spent 20 years as a delegate to the Iowa City Federation of Labor.
We just go right on down.
Go ahead.
All right. Hi, my name's Lisa Green Douglas, and I've been a member of the Johnson County Board of Supervisors since 2016. I was elected in a special election and since have been elected to 2 full terms. I got interested in county government when my husband and I moved out to the county, to Madison Township, and I was just really very interested in who's in charge of what do they do, and became more and more interested. It just, my timing wasn't right yet for running, and but as I got closer to that, I became very, very interested in county government and its role in providing mental health care, and that is one of the charges of our county government, and I wanted to be part of that solution,
And that
especially
is time
after seeing.
for 45 seconds. Sorry,
Okay.
Lisa.
Yeah, I just wanted to say after seeing the number of severely mentally ill that were incarcerated, so.
Cool, thank you. Go on to Mandi.
My name's Mandi Remington. I have lived in Johnson County since I was 14 years old. I am an only parent raising 3 children on 1 income with no state aid, and that is a perspective that has been missing from local leadership for quite a long time, just that understanding of what it's like to struggle to make ends meet in Johnson County. I've worked at the University of Iowa for the last 18 years, where I hold multiple positions in DEI leadership, and I'm the founder and director of Corridor Community Action Network.
Go ahead.
Very good. I'm Bob Conrad. Thanks again for being here as well. As Rod mentioned, I'm also a Century Farm, came up from Western Iowa. A little bit about me, I'm a public resource officer, and with that I do a lot of different things, interventions, do crisis negotiation, do peer support. One of the things that's important to me is public service, and that's at my core. So when I think about taking a position on the Board of Supervisors, to understand I've already served with the Johnson County Planning and Zoning Commission, the Rural Housing Trust Fund, and in some other areas, volunteer throughout the community and different organizations. For me, we need to look at affordable housing. We've talked about it long enough. We got to figure out how to get there. I've got some ideas on how to do that. Regional transportation, we got to have a regional transit system. We kind of got a dark spot in North Liberty. I think it's important that we get that all connected together. I've been talking to those groups, and I think we can put that together. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, now going on to the first question to start things off, we'll start with Lisa Green Douglas. Can you define how you see your role as a Johnson County Supervisor and your duties?
Certainly. I think that that's something that a lot of people don't realize, what the role of a supervisor is. I would say that our 3 main duties are to establish the county budget, to hire, fire, and supervise department heads, and to establish local policy and ordinances. We are seen as the legislative body at the local level. So that's our role.
Thank you. Go on, Mandi.
I see those as tasks personally. I am with a goal of ensuring that those who live in Johnson County have the best quality of life possible based on the policy and legislative set decisions that are made. Those always create solutions or problems in our county, depending on what decisions are made. So all of those decisions need to be made with that goal towards improving equitable access to basic needs and improving quality of life for all residents of Johnson County.
Bob Conrad.
All right, very good. I've been a director of our union for 28 years, and that's about 700 people now. So I'm used to taking care of people. I'm used to hearing what is needed, and I listen. That's an important part with government. I think we need to have people that ask questions, not afraid of the answers. If you don't agree with me, that's okay. That's what brings the diversity. That's what tells us what we need to fix, right? And so when I look at that and I think about that, I provide in many different ways a retirement account and stuff like that. So with the county, what we need to do is take that same leadership that I have and listening. I take care of budgets, negotiate contracts, all that stuff with the union. But my greatest love is taking care of people, and the public service is that core. So as the Board of Supervisors, we have to oversight, we have to direct, we have to manage. We put good people in good places, and if programs are not working, we change that. We figure out how to make it serve the community better. We do that by talking to people. It's a simple concept that I think is sometimes forgotten. It gets lost in the minutia, the bureaucracy of government. We need to bring back to the core, and that's transparency. We need to get your input. We need to ask you, need to solicit you for what works and what doesn't work, because sitting on this side of the table doesn't always tell me what's not working out there, right? So when you put good people in positions, we gotta let them work as well. We have good division directors. If they're not doing what they need to do, then we need to change that, so.
Thank you. Rod Sullivan.
Thanks. When I, serving in elected office is public service. And when I came to this job, I had been working in the Iowa Medicaid program for quite some time. And Medicaid is a poverty program from the 1960s, federal program. And my focus, and the whole time I've been on the Johnson County Board of Supervisors, is serving the same group of people that I served when I was working in the Iowa Medicaid program. And that's looking at the people who have the least in our community and trying to make sure that they are served fairly and adequately and appropriately. It doesn't mean you don't serve everybody else, but when I got here, we needed a focus on folks with less, and I'm proud to say that I've done that for my time in office.
Awesome. Thanks, y'all. All right, we are going to pass it along to the Prairielands Freedom Fund for their duration of time.
Hi, my name is Amel Ali. I am the bond coordinator for Prairieland Freedom Fund. And actually, we decided to do something a little unique. We know that often these forums are inaccessible, especially if folks are facing current criminal charges or if they don't have the means to get here. And so we asked a group of individuals about what they would want to know from electeds. And this was kind of the running list that we all came up with. And so my first question is specifically for Bob, but I would like it to expand to the rest of you. Last fall, Iowa City voters rejected school board candidates who voiced support for Governor Reynolds' education policies, including book banning and anti-trans bathroom bills. Based on sign placement around the county, Bob, you seem to garner similar support from the people who had those signage on their yard. How did you bridge that gap? And for the others that are elected, you'll be representing people with widely divergent social and political views. And how do you guys think you'll fix that gap, bridge that gap?
There's several questions there. You may have to remind me of a couple of facets of that. So as far as sign placement, sign placement is I've had people reach out to me and say, hey, we'd like to have your sign. I have friends that have signs, and I'll be honest with you, they are supportive of me, and I just put my signs there. So there's no rhyme or reason. If you're trying to say there is one, there's really not. So I appreciate that. As far as how do you handle that, I think this county is very good at standing strong and resisting the push that is happening from Des Moines, and I think we've done a good job at pushing back. And we have to continue doing that. My daughters went to public schools, had great educations, and I'm very proud of that fact. We have to protect that. We have to protect freedoms. We have to protect books. We have to make sure that people have the right to be free. And so, honestly, that's what I'll continue to push for as a Board of Supervisor. And I think it's important that this county remains strong, even when we're getting hit from Des Moines.
Thank you. And for the rest of you, if you're elected, you'll be representing people with widely divergent social and political views. How do you plan to bridge those gaps? We'll start with Rod.
Oh, isn't it Mandy's turn?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, that way. Mandi.
So I actually spend quite a bit of time and effort learning how to communicate with people who view things differently than me. I attend Progress Iowa's messaging meetings almost every single Friday, where they specifically talk about what messaging their research has shown works with folks in Iowa who don't necessarily automatically agree with the things that we want to see happen. I also recently led a book club that was part of a Powering Progress book club that Indivisible did around the country. And the book was specifically about the art of persuasion and how that has been lost from current politics, and how so many folks just try to reach out to those who agree with them and get those people to show up to vote, and how we still need to be trying to make those connections with other folks that don't agree with us and find ways that we can still work together. That is something that is very important to me, and I will continue to do all of the things that I have been doing and to engage in all of the areas of our community that I can get myself into to hear from everybody.
Lisa.
Okay, I'm still confused about the order, and I'm really confused about the question, because are we supposed to address sign placement?
So it's,
Or what?
you'll be representing people with widely divergent social and political views. How do you plan to bridge those gaps?
Okay, gotcha. Thank you. So I think that it's really important. Sometimes when we've got these divergent points of view, we have people who want things that aren't within our scope of authority or ability to do. So what we have to do first is find what their needs are, and then who we can connect with as leaders that can help us to help them find ways. So you gotta find out what the needs are, listen, and then find out where those areas of interface are of what we can do. Connect with those who can then help us do the parts that we can't do in terms of our scope of authority.
Thank you. Rod.
Well, I was trained as a social worker, and so, my early career was spent listening to people, and that's what I've brought with me to the Board of Supervisors. I feel like I do a pretty good job of listening to what folks have to say. I go out, I go to as many community things as I possibly can. I'm pretty visible around the community, and honestly, I sit down with whomever will have me. Every year I go to the Iowa or Johnson County Farm Bureau. I don't think that they care for me a lot, but they ask to have a supervisor, and I always volunteer to go. Because honestly, every single person in this county is deserving of our time. They all collectively pay our salaries, and we represent everybody, whether we like it or like them or not. And you have to treat everybody with respect, and you have to go out and do that job for everybody, because they're all your constituents.
Thank you. My next question for all of you is, last year, Governor Reynolds signed laws that enhance penalties for protesters as a part of the Back the Blue law. Do you believe that these laws are just?
Where are you starting? With me? Great. No, I think we need to have freedom to be able to protest peacefully. I think that the laws that try and stop that should be repealed. We should fight against that. One of the things SEIU is about is protecting people and unions, and your fund as well. So, I think we need to be very careful when people are passing laws that take away our freedoms and the ability to speak. I think that's wrong. I think that's we got to fight against that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mandi?
I think that they are unjust, unconstitutional, and that the county should take an official non-enforcement stance.
Thank you.
There were so many things wrong with the original Back the Blue law. It didn't get much better when they took some things out. And I think that it's egregious, I think is probably the best word that I can think of, that some of the things that Back the Blue made legal. And did you all know that one of the things that is legal is if there is a protester, it's okay to hit them with your car. So yes, I think it's terrible and egregious and should be illegal. I agree with you that it should be illegal.
Thank you.
Yeah, the first thing that my mind went to was that unbelievable law that you can drive over a protester, which is just mind-boggling. The constitutionality of these was mentioned, and I don't know. I hope that somebody does challenge that. It's going to take a while, obviously, to get up to the U.S. Supreme Court, if it could even get that far. But I'd like to see somebody who's been affected by it challenge it, because I have a hard time believing that all of it would pass muster.
Thank you. And as a sort of follow-up to that question, and Mandi, you kind of answered this, so if you want to just repeat what you said, I'm totally cool with that. But how do you view your role in protecting Johnson County residents from unjust state laws?
Where does this one start?
And you said
Yes.
Mandi, so I didn't know if it was.
Oh, Bob.
Okay. So, obviously as a public safety officer, I spent a long time in law enforcement. I think that's known. And so, I think my job has always been to protect everybody. It doesn't make a difference of anything else, just protect people. And that's how I look at it. So, when there is laws that are passed that don't protect people, we have to do something about that. That's how I feel about that. And but my goal has always been to protect everybody, and I think that's pretty easy to do when you have that clear view.
Thank you. Mandi?
Can you repeat the specific question, please?
Yeah. How do you view your role in protecting Johnson County residents from unjust state laws?
I believe that it is the responsibility of government to protect their people from everybody, including other government entities. So if one government body that resides over people is passing laws that cause harm or endanger those people, I believe it is up to the other government bodies that are over those people to challenge those laws directly. And that either can mean choosing not to enforce them, or it can mean joining lawsuits.
Thank you. Lisa?
I would certainly support a lawsuit against this law. We've talked about it often. I've been part of the Urban County Coalition where we talk about current legislation, and we've always said what we need to do is find something that is super obvious, that is unconstitutional or very unjust, and have a lawsuit. I would support that. Meantime, if there's a law, we don't enforce the law. If somebody else is enforcing the law, that is within their scope of authority, not ours. And what we need to do is work within the system to undo the law.
Thank you. Rod?
I also would support a lawsuit. I think one thing that I want to emphasize here is remember that these folks get elected. And one of the biggest things we can do is make sure that other people get elected in their place. Because we can't, the state can't take much more of a Kim Reynolds administration as far as I'm concerned. And so I hope the folks will put a lot of efforts into the political realm when that election comes up, because that's where we can make a difference.
Thank you. These next two questions were from individuals who wanted to ask specifically Rod and Lisa. As individuals who have served in this role for several terms, how have you collaborated with the restorative and transformative justice initiatives? And if you were elected another term, how would you propose expanding and enhancing those initiatives? Lisa?
I can't think of specific collaborations that we've had. We have had a few people ask us if we would like to have circles for restorative justice. They haven't manifested, but yeah, it hasn't come about, so we haven't.
Rod?
I first got involved with some circles with a person named Valerie Kemp, who was working at the 6th Judicial District. This was probably the first couple years before I was a supervisor, and then the first couple years that I was a supervisor. Valerie was using those, I think, to pretty good effect in her job with the 6th. There's also another person in town named Annie Tucker who was doing it also, and I had participated in a couple with her. Dr. Rose, Earl and Marilyn Rose, if anybody remembers them, were people that were very interested in this and doing yeoman's work as volunteers. So I've got some experience in it, and I think if we have the right situation, we ought to utilize it.
Thank you. And the next question starts off,
Mandy and Bob. She had said those were for the two of them.
specifically, the next question will kind of go over that. So to start off, for Lisa and Rod, what are lessons you've learned from the opening of GuideLink, successes and failures? And then Bob and Mandy, what are ways that you would expand those resources if you were elected? And we'll start with Lisa and Rod.
Okay. So I was part of the planning and both steering committee and executive committee for GuideLink, and we said often as we were looking at how we would get this up and running that there were certain things we wouldn't know until we actually opened and tried it. That actually turned out to be quite true. Our staffing model that we had created ahead of time turned out to not be really what was going to serve best. And we saw very quickly that we did need somebody there at all times that had a medical background. When you're dealing with people who are severely intoxicated or in a state of detoxing, that's necessary. So that happened. We also found that we did need some sort of security, but, in a from a CIT point of view, we found, we thought that most people would come there for sobering. We thought most people would come there by way of law enforcement. That hasn't been the case. More than half of our people get there as walk-ins and brought by family. So we've just had to adjust largely the staffing model to accommodate what the needs are. And so that's the biggest thing.
Thank
I would
you.
say.
Rod?
So when I started as a county supervisor, Johnson County had about 150 people in jail every day. Fast forward to now, we have about 90 people in jail every day, and we have 45,000 more people in the county than back when we used to have 150. So I'm really proud of that. I think we've done a lot to get people into more appropriate settings, and GuideLink was a big part of that. It's important to note that the discussions around GuideLink took almost 20 years. I mean, it doesn't happen quickly. It took a lot of money. It took a lot of collaboration from state, county, city officials. And I'm really proud of the fact that I was part of that, because it didn't just happen. It took a lot of work, a lot of sitting around the table for a long time, a lot of different tables with a lot of different people to get it together. And I think it's been a fantastic success, and I'm extremely proud of it.
Thank you. And Bob, what are ways that you would expand resources like GuideLink if you were elected?
Absolutely. One thing about GuideLink, I'll just be honest about it, for the longest time, and I've been here for over 20 years, when GuideLink opened, we weren't aware of it. We did not know it existed. From my department's standpoint, once we need to educate that, right? People have to know that service is available. We have to explain that. I've told so many different people, and I don't turned away, I know just myself, several people from having to go to an incarceration standpoint to take them to GuideLink. The staff down there is amazing. If you ever get a chance to tour GuideLink, I would highly recommend it. What they do, how they do it is really good. As a crisis negotiator, as a peer support leader, more now than ever, I am called to more of those types of situations. Whether it's situations where someone is contemplating suicide, whether they're dealing with some kind of addiction, whether it's drugs, alcohol, those kind of services are needed more than ever. And I can tell you from my standpoint, the people I work with standpoint, they want to have those extra resources. I will support those extra resources.
Thank you. Mandi?
So recently in a Johnson County Board of Supervisors meeting, there was a discussion over the budget, and 2 currently seated supervisors voted to not provide raises this year. All of my currently seated opponents voted to provide those raises. I would say that at this point in time, when our elected officials are doing really well financially, and we have a lot of residents that are not doing as well and a lot of needs, that provides an annual opportunity to invest more money into non-carceral safety responses such as GuideLink.
Thank you. My last 2 questions kind of go hand in hand, but we'll start with Bob. Do you support pursuing a new jail, and why? How do you think that would improve the lives of Johnson County residents?
Okay, so when I look at the jail, and again, not sitting in the role of a current Board of Supervisor, one of the things I would say is this. I need to see more of the data. I need to see more reasons why we need to have the new jail. But I will tell you, if the jail is in the condition that I keep hearing about, if it's falling apart, if we have cracks, if we have a safety risk to the people that are housed there, that's a problem. If that is not able to house the people that are in there, they have to be farmed out somewhere else. How does that work for them? I've seen so many cases where someone is taken 100 miles away from their families, so people can't visit that person. That doesn't help them get through that system. Their lives feel like they're falling apart for them. I know this because I talk to those people, and to me, if the jail is built for safety, to keep people closer to their families, for that situation, I think there's a need for possibly having one. If it's to put more people in jail, I don't think that's what this county's about. So,
thank you.
Yeah.
Mandi?
I would only support the construction of a new jail if its total costs remained lower than the cost of repairing the current jail, and if it was only to ensure the health and safety of those who are incarcerated based on the space needs study, and if it does not increase capacity. I would not vote for any increase in capacity. I believe that we need to decrease the capacity of our jails by not enforcing violent crimes. Not enforcing charges against nonviolent crimes, and by looking at more pretrial diversion. I am a domestic violence survivor whose abuser has had protective orders placed on him by 5 other people and who has never spent more than 10 hours in jail. We have folks in jail for days and days because they cannot afford bail and do not have resources for collateral, who have committed crimes that do not have any victims. So as far as I can tell, our jail is not full of violent criminals. It is full of poor people who can't pay bail, and most of which have not even been convicted of a crime yet.
Thank you. Lisa?
So our current jail is both a jail and a building that houses the sheriff's office and all the employees. The building is structurally in dire need. There are cracks. It is a safety issue at this point. So we have some monitors on it right now measuring the movement of those cracks, the increase of them. If we don't have capacity here for jailing people, they are put in other counties, and you can't predict necessarily where those counties are going to be because of their particular capacity. It keeps people from proximity to their legal counsel and their family. I have had the opportunity through my former employment to see a lot of jails and see both best practices in what they do in the jails and the actual building itself. And ours is in dire need and it falls short. I think that you certainly need to make sure it is not like a kennel. if you treat people like animals, they will, when they are released, have that kind of demeanor. So we need a good, safe, and humane place for incarceration and for the ability to expand services that are for those who are incarcerated.
Thank you. Rod?
Could you repeat the question,
Of
please?
course.
Sorry.
Do you support pursuing a new jail? If so, why? And how do you think that would improve the lives of Johnson County residents?
I do support it. I think it's important to note that if it happens, the public will have to vote for it because we don't have any other way to fund it. So I'll have one vote, just like you'll have one vote, and everybody in this audience will have one vote. So the important thing there is we have to convince the majority of the public that it is good for Johnson County. I take a little bit of issue, Mandi. I don't think it's true that the jail is full of people who, for whom there are victimless crimes. It's just simply not true. There's a roster there, and we can go through it, but you're going to find victims in almost every case. And we do a lot of work with victims. DVIP, one of our big partners, does a lot of work with victims. And frankly, the perpetrators, that's who's in there right now. I think the important reasons to consider a jail, number one, is safety. Public safety, the safety of the people who are in there, the safety of the people who work there. Second is the civil rights of the people who are in our jail right now are being violated all the time. It doesn't meet the needs. The building doesn't meet the needs, and we have to get a better one. I do not believe in cash bail. I don't think there should be such a thing. There's no point. You either need to be protected from others need to be protected from you, or you should be out. It should have nothing to do with your ability to pay. But I still think we need a jail.
Thank you. And I do want to say, and I would be happy to show you the statistics, Mandi is actually mostly correct about people who are incarcerated. I go through the list every day at 3 p.m. And most, I would say, 80 to 90% of folks in there actually have not been charged with a crime yet. And we can talk more about that at another time.
Charged.
But I haven't been convicted, I apologize. Haven't been convicted of a crime.
Oh, right.
Yes. And the last question.
That's because they haven't been able to see a judge yet.
Okay. So the last question that I have for all of you is that do you consider the public defender's office and incarcerated people as stakeholders in this conversation about the acquisition or for a new jail?
Okay, repeat that one more time, just so I'm.
Yeah. Do you consider the public defender's office and folks who are and have been incarcerated as stakeholders in this conversation about the acquisition of a new jail?
Absolutely. It's about right. The council, when you talk about public defender's office, if you can't afford it, one is appointed to them. That's a staple of for our freedom, our rights, and to have someone be represented. So, yeah, I definitely think they need to be part of the stakeholders. And I think when you look at the court system, you'll see a lot of times someone from the public defender's office goes in and becomes a judge. And I support that as well because that shows both sides. It doesn't stack it one way or the other. I think that's important. Yeah.
Thank you. Mandi?
Absolutely. I think that every decision made by any government body should always involve every affected individual from the very beginning of the conversation.
Thank you.
And as Rod had pointed out, and everybody will get, the opportunity to weigh in on this because, that's the only way we can fund something. So public defenders, everyone that gets to vote can, in fact, do that. And he mentioned that as long as the majority of the people, this is a vote that would require a supermajority. It has gotten a majority every single time it's been up. It just hasn't gotten the supermajority.
Yeah, I absolutely believe folks who have been incarcerated and public defenders should be part of the process. Absolutely. I mean, they know as much about it as anybody, and it makes total sense.
Thank you. And then, so the last 25 minutes, PFF has decided to heed their time for some representatives from Escucha Mi Voz to ask some questions. And so if y'all would like to come up.
Hola, buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Ninosca Campos. Soy de Honduras. Soy miembro de la organización Escucha Mi Voz de Iowa.
Hello, my name is Nina Campos. I am from Honduras, and I am a member of Escucha Mi Voz.
La gobernadora Reynolds firmó una nueva ley inconstitucional que convierte en un delito estatal a los trabajadores indocumentados aquí en Iowa.
Governor Reynolds signed a new unconstitutional law making it a state crime for undocumented workers to live in Iowa.
La semana pasada, el alcalde de Iowa City marchó contra la nueva ley e hizo una proclama. Entonces mi pregunta es, ¿qué harán ustedes como supervisores para defender a los residentes inmigrantes del condado de Johnson mediante esta nueva ley?
Last week, the mayor of Iowa City marched against the new law and made a proclamation. Yonoska's question is, what will you do to protect and defend the immigrant residents of Johnson County from this new law?
Want me first?
Yes.
All right. So I think all of us in here can understand that we have many immigrants in our county, and we were immigrants all once too. And so I think we couldn't survive without the immigrants in this county. I mean, they provide a vital workforce. How we get them to be here and have the ability not to be fearful of having to be deported or taken back, I think is very important. And that's an education piece that we've got to start working with social services and different groups that we can help that with. One of the things I noticed was when the ARPA funds, the $1.5 million was taken back, and you went to the courthouse. And I think that was awesome. You got down there, you made your voices heard, and those kind of voices help us understand what's going on.
Thank you. Mandi?
I will keep doing what I've been doing for years and showing up and listening and asking what support is needed. I actually forgot to take my tennis shoes to work last week, so I marched with you all in heels. My toes are still hurting, but I was also part of the Excluded Workers Fund, which I know Lisa Green Douglas and Royceann Porter both voted against. I was actively involved in those meetings and advocating with that group. And I will continue to do that, like I continue to be there for every marginalized group in our community and show up and listen, stay on the mailing lists and be involved and know what's going on and how they best want to be supported, because that's what it always comes down to. It's never, somebody who is a leader should never determine how somebody should be supported. They should listen to how those people want to be supported.
Thank you.
So regarding Excluded Workers Fund, what we did fund, in fact, included more than, it included excluded workers and others, so that wasn't the only criteria. There was a different gateway question that made it a lot more ample in terms of who was included in that. I think that the new legislation is terrible. It will lead to racial profiling. I think that what we need to do is work to find a pathway to immigration that allows people to be here and to be here safely and participating in our community. We've done some things that have, in fact, tried to ease the way. Our community ID program gave people identification. I belong here. I'm a part of this community. I've worked very closely with Center for Worker Justice that has done a lot of work with our immigrant workers who have been, in fact, exploited and in some cases actually abused. We've gotten and successfully recovered wages for people who have been paid in cash without taxes being taken out, without the benefits of workers' comp or any other protections. So working to identify those and helping people. And we've also helped with finding housing. And then regarding the $1.5 million, we didn't take it away, we just funded it differently
Thank you.
for housing.
Rod?
Yeah, I've got a 40-year record of supporting marginalized groups, and I've been to just about every protest that can be had. When the co-sponsoring organization here, SEIU, was formed in the 1990s, I was making phone calls for that effort and was glad that SEIU got formed over at the hospital. When the Center for Worker Justice was getting formed in the early 2000s, I was part of that, and I have seen firsthand how employers could hold a person's immigration status over their head and threaten them with going to immigration if the person didn't work more hours than they were supposed to, or didn't, break some law or do something else. So the employer had all the power in that situation. So I've been really proud of the work that the CWJ has done in this community. I'm proud to have been a part of it. I continue to be a supporter there. And I think there are a lot of other good organizations doing similar work, and I support that.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Miriam Hayatov, and I'm a member of Escucha Mi Voz. Governor Reynolds' anti-immigrant law cannot be enforced in schools or churches, including multi-use places of religious worship, like the Catholic worker houses of hospitality. A recent worker health survey of 481 immigrant workers found more than half of Latino workers are technically homeless, tripling up occupancy in order to survive. My question is, do you support new county investments in permanent supportive housing projects for immigrant workers?
Yes, absolutely. That's one of the things, and I hope you read the questionnaires and stuff they sent back in and stuff. But when it comes to affordable housing, I think we have a need for right around 10,000, just to round it a little bit. We have 1,800 affordable housing units in the county, so we need 8,200 more units. The only way that we make a difference is we got to start adding to those units, whether it's repurposing buildings, it's purchasing ground, stuff like that. I mean, when it comes right down to it, the county needs to get more actively involved. We've got to get those units. Living an affordable house, to me, I've been into many houses that people should not have to live in those conditions. They shouldn't have to be in there. There shouldn't be 8 to 10 people in a house that is a 1-bedroom. There's people sleeping on couches and floors and trying to find a pillow. I see that on my daily job. And so we've got to get serious about that. We've got to put the resources there. We've got to make the relationships. There are people out here that feel what we're talking about. And it's not just the people that are stuck in those conditions. So they need to get out of that. But it's people that can help. It's the contractors. It's the bankers that can help get us funding for this. There's federal grants out there that are untouched. We need to find more of those, and we need to access them. And we've just got to start doing it. And my background, I feel very confident that I can build those relationships.
Thank you. Mandi?
Yes, I absolutely do, and that needs to include non-market housing. It needs to include a lot of different options. I support innovative, affordable housing for all groups of people in our community that are affected. There's not a one-size-fits-all solution for housing. I myself pay more than 50% of my take-home and pay for my rent. And have been renting in Iowa City for over 20 years. And to completely understand what that struggle is like. And the solutions that would work for me are not necessarily the same solutions that are going to work for people who are immigrants. It's not the same solutions that are going to work for people who have dogs. It's not the same solution who's going to necessarily work for people who use substances. All of these populations need to be taken into consideration when creating a complete holistic housing action plan for the county.
Thank you. Lisa?
Yeah, I absolutely would support a permanent supportive housing plan for immigrants. In fact, I'll just stop right there. But I do want to say that right now there is a house that our local labor has made available as a transitional housing place for those who are immigrants and, until they get settled in the community. We have, we're currently, that $1.5 million was mentioned is for a permanent supportive housing type setting, and it will be made available to anyone who meets the income criterion for entry into that. So, yeah, I'm behind it 100%.
Thank you. Rod?
I'm extremely proud of my record on affordable housing. When I was a young social worker, a lot of my job was helping people to find housing in this community. It wasn't easy then, it's even harder now. I've been on the board of the Housing Trust Fund of Johnson County for a long time. I'm very proud of the work that's happened there. When I started with Johnson County was putting about $5,000 a year into affordable housing. This year, we will have put in about $750,000. We've been doing something similar to that for quite some time. I'm very proud of that investment. Our investment has been pretty targeted. We go to people who are at 30% or less of the area median income. That's pretty low wage. So Mandi, you're not going to qualify at your wage. It's just folks who are really quite poor that qualify there. We've also required 30 years of affordability. So if we do a project, you can't just make it affordable for 2 years and then say, well, now it's market rate. It has to be affordable for a minimum of 30. So like I said, I'm very proud of the investments that have been made in affordable housing here.
Thank you. Well, I am done 10 minutes early, so I get 3 gold stars.
Alrighty, so we are done a little bit early for Prairielands Freedom Fund and Escucha Mi Voz. So we're going to take a 15-minute break. So we will reconvene at 7:30. Gives folks a time to chill for a little bit.
Thank you.
So going off with first question, Barb, if you don't mind.
How are we starting off? Up and down?
We'll go Rod first. So 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm Barb Steinerson. I'm VP with SEIU, Healthcare, Minnesota, and Iowa. And my question is, are you or have you been a member of a union? And what does being a pro-labor candidate mean to you? And I want to stress that I really want to hear about what that means to you now, not 20 years ago, not 30 years ago, because the playing field is a lot different in Iowa right now than what it used to be, especially at the university. So tell me what you want to do or what you think is important right now as a pro-labor candidate. Okay, Bob?
I think you
Or Rod?
He said Rod.
Okay.
Rod, yeah, Rod.
I'm being respectful just for the record.
Well, I have to start a while ago because I think my labor roots are important. My grandparents came to Cedar Rapids, Iowa, so that they could join unions, so that they could have better lives. My grandpa was 40 years as a union carpenter. My grandmother was 40 years in the UFCW meatpacking plant. My father spent 40 years with the laborers Local 43 in Cedar Rapids, and he spent 30 of that as the business agent for that. I've been a 30-plus year union member myself, AFT 716. I've spent 20 years as AFT delegate to the Iowa City Federation of Labor, and I have not missed very many Iowa City Federation of Labor meetings in 20 years. So when you talk about what's on the cutting edge for labor right now, I hear it every single month because I go to those meetings. I was at the Laborers 43 meeting in Cedar Rapids yesterday and was listening to current workers talking about how the technology changes are affecting their jobs in the construction industry. Now, Johnson County, we have 600 employees, give or take, and of those 600, about 250 of them are in unions. And I think if you talk to the folks who represent those unions, they will tell you that I've been approachable. We've had almost no problems in the whole time that I've been there. So I expect that to continue because labor is an important part of my life.
Okay, Lisa?
Sure. So I was a member of a union for 2 very short years when I taught at Clear Creek High School in the 80s. I was a member of Iowa State Education Association. We tried to form a union when I taught at Cornell College and joined with the union. And we were getting a chapter of American Association of University Professors, but that had not happened by the time I left there. I have been supportive of unions at the county. As you all know, in 2017, the state legislature took away the ability for collective bargaining, pretty much gutted Chapter 20, except they left in the thing that you still can't strike. What we did in anticipation of that was extend the contracts that we currently had in place at the county. We've got AFSCME and PPME, and there's a third one. It's escaping.
No, just AFSCME,
Just those 2,
PPME,
okay, yeah, okay. And we extended those contracts so that hopefully the state wouldn't touch them or let them alone, and that in fact happened. So we have been very, very supportive of our unions, and we've even been willing to open up contracts when there has been kind of flight from Johnson County to go to other places that had higher contracts for their union people. So, yeah, I continue to support that. Project labor agreements were annihilated, but we have a quality assurance program for construction.
Okay, time. Thank you, Lisa.
That helps.
Mandi?
I am a trustee for AFSCME 12, and I believe that as a Johnson County supervisor, role in protecting and working with unions is to continue to bargain over the full range of allowable bargaining topics, and then also to proactively bring more union representative and workers to the table. I would actually like to establish a workers board made up of union representatives and a cross-section of workers from across the county from different types of work that would distribute community surveys and do research and bring suggestions to the Board of Supervisors for ways to support workers in our county.
Thanks, Mandi. Bob?
All right, thanks, Barb. So again, I'll touch back on when I started with the union. That was 35 years ago when I first started, and then I got on as a director, and that's been 28 years. And what unions need to do and what they're responsible for doing is taking care of their members. They take care of the people that they serve. And so when I look back to what Branstad did, and I dealt with him in the 90s, dealt with him again in 2017 when they got to Chapter 20, how they treated employees. I'd never met a person that treated his employees so bad, spoke poorly of his employees. I mean, a CEO or somebody in a company would never do that. And so when I look at that and I look at unions, we have to educate and educate. We have the decertification votes now. So if you don't get people that are in the union and the people even that could be in the union to vote yes for a contract, you lose it. And so many people, there was an administrative staff at Johnson County that lost their union because it got decertified. I've had people reach out to me. I think we need to bring that back to this county. The fact that this is such a pro-county for labor and we don't have that in there is sad. Another part of it is lobbying. When I first got on the union, a lot of the things was, well, we're not going to stir it up. We're not going to make waves because we don't want them to hurt us. It's proven that they don't pay attention to that. The only way to get their attention is to get in there. I go to the Capitol quite a bit. I deal a lot with different people and make them know we have a voice that needs to be heard. The other thing is trying to recruit inside of the hospital and the SEIU, any union. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, next question. And I am Chris. I am one of the internal organizers. I represent all the healthcare staff at UIHC. So how would you work with COGS, AFSCME, and SEIU to pressure the university to work along public sector labor relations? Starting with Lisa Green Douglas.
Could you repeat the question, please?
Yes. So how would you work with COGS, AFSCME, and SEIU, who are all working underneath the Board of Regents, to pressure the university to work alongside public sector labor relations?
Yeah, actually, we faced this when the minimum wage increase that we implemented here and then had taken away from us. It happened that the university felt that they didn't need to honor that. And we found we just dealt with a lot of people who were experts and found loopholes. And by the time, we were able to bring that forward to them that, yes, you do in fact have to honor this and for everybody, not just their union workers. The state had taken away our ability to enforce that. But I think you just need to just keep coming to the table, keep indicating that it's workers' rights is also human rights, and we need to honor it all.
Thank you. Mandi.
Again, by proactively bringing them to the table through that workers' board and other means, I have stood with striking workers with every opportunity that I've had. That is something that I will continue to do. And then I am also not shy of sending strongly worded letters to Barbara Wilson. I have done that recently. I will get involved in whatever kind of negotiation or conversation unions are asking for their county leadership to take part in.
Thank you. Bob.
All right. So it starts a lot to me with, I'm sorry, I speak loud. Usually I don't need a microphone. With a lot of grassroots, right? Because what we've got to do is if people in that union want change, they've got to recruit people. They got to get more people to show up, to join that strength. With grassroots, one of the things is elected officials, right? We've got to get that changed. The people that don't support, we need to get a change in the office. Get them voted out, get the people that are supportive in. Try and find bridges for the people that want to be supportive that don't seem like they can. And again, it's about people, not politics, but there's so many politicians that get hung up on the politics of it because they're on the wrong side, they can't vote that way. Well, that's crap. Simple as that. And so, it is people that we need to take care of. So get them out. Give examples of issues. You look at the safety of workers and you see these examples and they happen all the time. We just had an honor of that for workers that died on duty. And so when you look at that and you see people that have been hurt and injured and killed, that right there says why we need unions. Plus, it benefits them for recruiting. It brings better unions, it brings better workforces, and it brings more skilled labor.
Thank you. Rod.
Yeah, so we have a workers' board. It's called the Iowa City Federation of Labor, and it's been meeting here for a long, long time. And all the different entities that were asked about show up. So I would encourage more people to show up at that. I've been on literally dozens of picket lines in my life. The first one I was probably 5 or 6. The last one was just this last summer. I just spoke to the presidents of COGS and AFSCME about a week ago, so I'm very familiar with what's going on in their unions right now. I had a good talk with Rich. I know all these folks well. We were talking about, Lisa mentioned the university. When we had the minimum wage fight, a bunch of us showed up at a meeting that then President Harold was holding. He was supposed to take questions. He wouldn't answer a question about the minimum wage, and we convinced the majority of people in the audience to walk out. And he was not very happy about it, but I thought it was the appropriate response. And so we've done that before, and I'm plenty happy to do that again.
Thank you.
Excuse me, could I add something?
Yes, go ahead.
There was, when Children's Hospital was being built, there was a group of us, a lot of SEIU members, in fact, and we went to the Capitol Construction, which is kind of near and below Kinnick Stadium, because they had subcontractors who were not paying prevailing wage and who were paying in cash and were not honoring anything union. and there had been some breaches of safety. So we stayed there. We were asked to leave. We didn't. They threatened to bring in university police, and we said, okay. They finally then brought us the person who was in charge, who claimed that they didn't know that the subs weren't paying prevailing wage. So, yeah, I've done a few picket lines and protests myself for unions and labor.
Thank you. And Brett, have you come up?
Hi, I'm Brett. I am a medical laboratory scientist at Iowa Healthcare Now. And I just wanted to ask, tell us your thoughts about the time between July 25th through the 31st, when folks are out of a lease and home. This around here is known as Homeless Week to some. What do you think of this phenomenon, and how would you change it if you could?
I think it starts
Start with you, Mandi.
I think that it's absolutely unacceptable for such a large percentage of our population to not have a place to live or a place to store their stuff for a consistent annual week. And I think that it is really upsetting that none of the governing bodies have really done anything about that, and that it hasn't really been a topic of conversation in the housing conversation. I think that we need to find a way to incentivize landlords to stagger leases to avoid that happening.
I really appreciate you asking that question on the questionnaire because, again, I wasn't as well versed as I wanted to be on that. So I went down and I'm a big researcher, so I started looking at that. And, I've heard of Switchover Week, but when you called it Homeless Week, I actually looked that up, started looking up articles. So thanks for bringing that to my attention. There needs to be a way that we can figure that out. People having to go to hotels and stay somewhere so they're not homeless. People having no place to put their stuff, trying to pack their cars full, which is what I'm learning about with this. If there was a way to have a situation where we could bring that stuff, I'm thinking even on a county level, the fairgrounds, is there a way to have a place where you can store your stuff? I know there's going to be a lot of issues with that, but there's definitely an issue there. And the other thing is, if it's not prorated, so you're paying for a month's worth of rent, at bare minimum, they got to be giving money back to you, or you don't pay for that because you're paying for 30 days of rent, and then you're getting 23 or 24. There's an education piece with pretty much everything we do, and that's part of it too, looking at that lease. When someone signs that, and the unfortunate part is they're taking advantage of people because they come in, they don't think the lease, you'll be out the end of July. Well, no, you're really out the 23rd of July, and you're honestly, sorry, screwed. And that's just not fair. So anyway.
Yeah, I agree with Bob. I think that last week that you're paying for is something that maybe people ought to look at a class action lawsuit. And there have been class action lawsuits here against landlords that have won. So it's not out of the realm of possibilities. I think another thing that's got to be mentioned here is the unfortunate trend of the consolidation. Over the last 20, 30 years, the number of people who own units has gotten smaller and smaller and smaller, and they own, hundreds and hundreds of units. It's not like it was many years ago where, Mrs. Smith has a couple rooms in the house that she rents. That's not the case anymore. Or somebody has an investment property that they rent out. Not anymore. I mean, we've got, in just my neighborhood, there's one man that owns over 100 houses in our neighborhood. Wow. I mean, as soon as an older resident decides that they need to move from that house, he's purchasing the house and he's jacking the rent, and it's not good for this community.
So I have a perspective as someone who had rental income housing, and my leases went to the end, almost to the end of July, to the 28th. So it was a 3-day thing rather than a week. Not that it doesn't address where do they go, what do they do. It did shorten that amount of time, though. And I, in fact, did prorate those 3 days if they deposit return and rent. But those 3 days were in fact necessary to clean the apartment, do any damage control that often happened, and to get it ready for the next tenants. So it was necessary from that perspective. I think that it's also an opportunity when we mention what can be done. Well, what could be done? What kind of partnerships can we form? Bob, you mentioned using the fairgrounds for storage. Not a bad idea, and I'm sure that the fairgrounds board might enjoy getting some income that way, if it were subsidized by local governments. That's something we could certainly do. If there were an opportunity also then to partner with a place that was large and had available housing, how could we do that? And could that also be subsidized by local government? So there's absolutely a need there.
Right,
Sometimes
this time.
problems are opportunities as well. So we should look into that.
Cool. Thank you. All right. Next question from one of our members.
Thanks, Brett.
Hi, I'm Angie, and I'm also a medical laboratory scientist at UIHC. And my question is, the Board of Supervisors voted unanimously on April 3rd to halt the $1.5 million of funding through the American Rescue Plan Act for the affordable housing. Why were the funds denied, and what are your limits for accepting federal and state contributions? And for those of you who weren't voting on that, would you have denied them, and why or why not? And could we start with Lisa, please?
Yeah, certainly. So again, only part of the story got out. What we did was ARPA funds have to be obligated by the end of this calendar year, and that means there has to be a contract in place or an invoice, and if that isn't the case, the money has to be returned. We did not want to get to the point of, in December and find out that, in fact, we weren't going to be able to obligate those funds. So instead of funding that through ARPA, we are funding it through the ARPA interest money. And that doesn't have the same obligation deadlines. And so the money will be used. It will be used in the way that we wanted it to be. So there's a little bit of misunderstanding about that. It's not going away. It's just being funded differently so that we don't have the time constraints and that we can identify a property and set up the program for this in the right way. So that's all.
And Rod, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, it's just, the premise of the question is really, with all due respect, wrong.
Okay.
We're spending still the exact same amount of money on an affordable housing project. We might have something in the works, but we're not able to talk about that because it's in the works and it's not done. But it's the exact same amount of money. It's simply it's the interest that has been earned over the last few years on the ARPA project didn't have any strings. Federal government, Department of Treasury said you can spend that money however you like. So it's almost exactly equal to what we had set aside for ARPA for housing. As Lisa said, we were worried about the timing, and so we said, let's just flip-flop those. Let's put the ARPA money into a project that we already have almost completed, finish it off, and use the interest money, which has no strings, to get the housing done. So the housing's going to happen.
Bob?
Okay, I do have a question because I guess I'm unclear. The interest money that I had saw, and I try and follow as much as I can, not sitting in the seat, it's hard. I thought that was 1.1 million. Is it 1.5 million of interest money? Mm-hmm. Okay. So, not sitting there, right, again, trying to be respectful, but from my perspective, what I would do, we didn't let people know before that denial, at least not that I had heard of, that we're going to deny the 1.5 million ARPA money, right? So, and again, I'm going off what they're saying on strings. Once I get in the Board of Supervisors, I can look at those at a deeper dive and see what it is. But if we would have told the public that, hey, we're going to get rid of this and we're going to replace it with 1.5 here, I think that would have went smoother. That's my job to do that as a board of supervisor if I'm elected. Transparency and make sure people understand that. I understand completely why everybody went down to the and protested, because they didn't have the full understanding. And so when we look at that, I know that $700,000 I think was budgeted in the 25 budget. Again, I'm not trying to put them on the spot here, but for a county that talks about affordable housing being so important, for a county that really wants to make this priority, like the 25 budget, talking about $700,000, I don't think that's enough. I don't think we're doing enough there. I think we need to go deeper with that. I think we need to find more money. I think we need to allocate more money. Maybe we need some sustainability and look at other programs that aren't really benefiting the county the way they should, and take that money and put it to affordable housing. Because I think everybody up here thinks affordable housing is that important.
What are those
And
programs?
Yeah.
Okay. You go there, trust me. So.
Go ahead, Mandi.
As soon as that vote went through, I was texting a few of the current supervisors to ask for clarification about it, which I agree with Bob on that being an example of how our local government can be doing a lot more to be clear and transparent and explain the decisions that are being made. One of my top priorities is increasing the accessibility of our civic system and community engagement with our civic system, and that is a perfect example of a situation where the Board of Supervisors had a responsibility to more clearly inform the public about the decision that they were making. I think that the decision ultimately was a right one. It was a good start. We do need more money for affordable housing than that $1.5 million, but I think that taking it from a fund that has less regulations and allows for more creativity is the right decision. It just should have been communicated more clearly, and that is something that I hope is a lesson moving forward.
Could we respond to these things?
If they respond,
I'm just seeing how many questions we have and how much time we have.
I'd gladly respond to Rod's question.
Give everybody 90 seconds to respond.
Well, just regarding transparency, our agendas are published, and you can sign up to get those if you don't already. They're published days in advance, and the packet is available with that. Our meetings are open. They don't take place behind closed doors unless it's a closed session. And we have everything live streamed. You can watch it at the time. You can go back and watch it in the archives. So I guess I'm just interested in what more you would do for transparency.
Do I then get to
90
respond
seconds.
to that? Okay. So for the last 5 years, I have posted those exact agendas that you're talking about, along with the agendas for every city in the county and every school board in the county, on Corridor Community Action Network, which has a following of 2,500 people throughout the corridor, but also just explaining those decisions. I mean, it's obvious that people did not understand that that $1.5 million was still being funded. So just clearer explanations up during meetings of what is happening for the public to truly understand. Because I think that that was a situation where the board did make the right decision, but a lot of people got upset because they thought that something was not being funded.
Yeah, and we did say in the meeting that we were going to fund it with the interest money. So you don't know that people don't understand things until after the fact, when they say, we didn't know what you meant by saying that you were going to fund that with the interest money. So now we know.
And
Bob or Rod, like a response?
well, I want to talk a little bit about, the board is very committed to affordable housing. Like you said, over $700,000 this year, just like last year, just like several years before.
For 8 years.
Now, you want to start talking about putting a lot more money into it. Where's it going to come from? We have 600 employees. They are the best paid employees and best benefited employees in our comparability group, which is an important thing to SEIU. We are the county in Iowa that per capita puts by far the most money into health and human services related thing. Nobody else is even close. I think that's also important to SEIU. So when you get those two things done, the pie isn't very big. We're already taking $750,000 of it out for affordable housing. We still have to, there's a lot of things with which we are charged to do. We don't have a choice to not do them. There's part of state code. The pickings get kind of thin after that. I would be happy to talk more about it with anybody that wants to talk about it, and we can play the game of talking about what we're going to cut. But I'm just telling you, having done it before, the cuts become pretty deep pretty quickly.
And 90 seconds for Bob, then we'll move on to the next question.
All right, very good. So when I talk about looking at different things to cut, Rod, and you ask what areas, I look at areas like different programs that we seem to put more money into. One of the things on the budget was the Poor Farm at $1.1 million, right? The sustainability of the Poor Farm, I just am not seeing it. I understand growing food, I understand that, but we're trying to turn it into an event center. We're hiring people out there. I think there's 5 or 6 staff members on the Poor Farm now. I think we need to look at stuff like that and say, what's the cost of food? Depending on how you do the math, and everybody will come up with a different number, but when I started looking at it and going, is it $50 per pound for food out there? That's not sustainable. And we have ARPA money we're putting in there, but I think those things, we look at staff members. I know when I was on planning and zoning, there was 2 staff members in the Board of Supervisors office. Now there's 14 or 16 besides elected. So again, when I look at stuff, again, I'll have to get deeper dive once I get elected to get in there. But those kind of things are where we look at money going to salaries. Do we really need all those there? Is there money to put stuff into other programs that benefit the people we serve?
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jolene. I'm a staff nurse over at the hospital. My question for you guys is, how can you give folks in the lower income neighborhoods more of a voice in the needs of their neighborhoods?
I'm going to start with, I think it's Rod. Rod, it's your turn.
Okay.
Go first.
Well, first of all, I would point out that, all of the neighborhoods in Johnson County are in Johnson County, but they also, many of them have another layer of government. So if you're a lower income neighborhood in North Liberty or Coralville or, Oxford, wherever, you've got another layer of government. And Johnson County has to be careful to work with those layers of government. We try to work together whenever we can. Sometimes we're at odds. For the most part, we've, I think, gotten along pretty well, and I take some credit for that because I think we have pretty good relationships. Like I said, since I've been on the Board of Supervisors, I've really focused on putting resources into the folks who need them the most, and that's our lowest income folks. And we have a lot of programs in Johnson County that benefit folks who are lower income. Like I said, per capita, we're by far the highest spender on health and human services in the whole state of Iowa. It's not even close. And I'm really proud of that. And so I think we'll continue to do that. As for a voice, we've done some joint meetings with the cities. We've had some luck with that. We have a joint meeting every quarter with the larger cities and the school boards and things like that. So we keep trying. It's a work in progress.
Thank you. Lisa.
I would probably be repeating a lot of what Rod said, but neighborhoods are largely in municipalities, and in Iowa, they have home rule, but we do have moments and projects of certain overlap, and we communicate. We do have those meetings. We were, before COVID, rotating and going to different council meetings. I think that any one of our mayors is approachable, and the city managers, in fact, too. What we do is fund services that are largely provided from within the city. And Iowa City, a lot of social programs, and our general assistance helps with food and housing and utilities. There's even funeral support services. We help through those social services that are largely housed in the cities. But we also try to point out that affordable housing really works best when it's in the cities working outward because of the services and transportation. You don't want to create deserts, food deserts, library deserts, and transportation deserts by locating those out in the county. So we support those within the cities. But we do have a really good working relationship with the cities.
So you give residents a say in what happens in their neighborhoods by listening to them and amplifying their voices through your position of leadership. I live in the South District. I spend a lot of time in the manufactured home neighborhoods, and I have been going to every town in the county to hold candidate coffee chats because I know that it's important to go to people where they are, and that is something that I will continue to do once I am elected so that I can support folks who live in any neighborhood as they approach whatever city council or other neighborhood association they need to approach to get what they're trying to get done.
All right, so Jolene, thanks for your question. When I think about the best way of doing that, right? If I walk into that neighborhood, are they going to talk to me? Are they going to want to hear what I have to say or ask them questions? They're going to think I'm up to something. So you got to identify the leaders, right? You got to talk to, there's leaders in every community, and sitting on the central committee and being active with the central Dems, one thing I've learned is talk to the people that have been there, that have those relationships. And Annie just took over DEI from Tony Curran. And if you know Tony, his voice, he's been a great advocate. And so when you look at those kinds of situations, you've got to find that person that's trusted. And I find just keep rolling with that. And then once you become that person of voice and they introduce you and they see you're not trying to take something from them, I think it's very important that we build that relationship. But I do know I have to get someone to do that for me to get in there and find out what is needed, because we don't know on this side of the table. So,
Thank you.
And I apologize. I just realized that we kind of skipped over Bob for first, so we'll go Bob first and then Rod over.
I didn't take it personal.
Yeah.
I don't know how you keep track of it.
One more question?
One more question.
Okay, so there's...
This is the good question?
It is.
All right, good.
So there's currently a push amongst the Johnson County trans community for Iowa City to be a sanctuary city for anti-trans legislation. In this position of power, how would you insist in seeing this come into fruition?
Okay. Well, definitely by listening, right? Obviously, ask the questions. What are they being deprived of? What is it like? Because I can't say I know what it's like being trans. So once you hear that, and then what they need to make them feel included in this community, I think every one of us wants to feel included. And I think it was Tony actually that said, Bob, you don't know, you're a white guy with white privilege. And he's right. I don't understand certain things from certain perspectives. But having the conversations, being able to talk to people, my door will be open. If elected as Board of Supervisor, I will be that person that they can come talk to me. And I said it early on in this forum that we may not always agree on things, but I want to listen and I want to learn. And learning is a huge part of that. And you don't do that without talking to each other. The days of assuming and thinking and you have to have real conversations to make that happen. And if you don't have real conversations, then you're working on what ifs, and that's where things get messed up.
Okay, thank you. Mandi?
I will be attending the first meeting of the Johnson County Trans Advisory Workforce that I am on tomorrow. And I will be pushing for non-enforcement of any discriminatory anti-trans laws. 2 of my children are trans, and I have done a lot of advocacy for LGBTQ rights here in Johnson County and at the Capitol, and also spent some time at the Move On 25th Anniversary Summit in Atlanta learning a lot from national LGBTQ organizers who I am still in touch with and will be continuing to communicate with as we figure out how we can protect trans folks in Johnson County from these awful laws that are coming down from the state of Iowa.
Thank you. Lisa?
Well, when I am learning about something, I ask a lot of questions. I recently was chastised for asking those questions, but my questions were basically just what are the charges that we are going to give to this trans advisory group that we agreed to form, and I'm sure that with all of the voices that are there and the passion that is around this issue and the recent situations that have arisen, that they will come forward with some good good suggestions for us and recommendations, which I look forward to hearing and learning about. I am a learner in all of this and open to hearing more. So that's exactly why we agreed to form the group.
Okay.
Yeah, I am actually part of the committee that will be dealing with this tomorrow night. We've got a number of people from the community coming in, and the trans folks that are there will be leading the conversation. So we're going to kind of go where the conversation goes. Specifically to the idea of sanctuary cities, I got an email earlier today, a chain going between a member of our county attorney's office and another supervisor, V. Fix-Morais. And there's actually some pretty good direction legally as to what you can and can't do. And I'll read some of this. This is from a law professor at Wesleyan University who says, some sanctuary declarations are simply rhetorical statements of support or opposition to a particular cause or policy. These have little or no legal consequences. Others that order local officials to not enforce or comply with state or federal law may be more difficult. And so we will have to consider that along with the information that we get from the other folks tomorrow. So we'll see.
Okay. I just want to get, that's the end of the questions, but I wanted to throw out some dates here that on voting. Y'all know that the primary elections are June 4th, hopefully. Wednesday, May 15th is the first day of absentee voting. Monday, May 20th is pre-registration deadline to request absentee ballot to be mailed, received by the county auditor prior to 5 p.m. Monday, June 3rd, the absentee ballot in-person deadline. And then June 4th, absentee ballots receipt deadline, election day. And the polls are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Okay?
Still have same-day voter registration, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can't believe that.
I want to thank all candidates for joining us. This was fantastic. Great to have great conversations. This is recorded again. It will be on City Channel 4, hopefully by the end of the week, and we'll probably post it on our Facebook as well. But yeah, that is it for today. Thanks again, guys.
Put it together.
Thank you.
Of course.